Dan talked about this time, being away from the program being good for players to kind of just like reset and get mentally back in it. What was that like for you, and how have you seen the team come back and, ready, prepare for a game now?
It was like a breath of fresh air, honestly. We came back with tremendous energy. Guys seemed like they was itching to get back. I know I was. And, I feel like that week of practice we had, we flew around and we executed.
Oh, right on the left. Just you're in a room with a couple of guys who don't have postseason experience. Just curious what you're telling guys like De'Aaron and Jordan about what it means to prepare for a playoff game.
Just telling them, like Coach Landon says all the time, there are no more bad teams. So going into this next phase of the season, I'm just telling them, like Coach Sam says, add more to your routine. What more are you doing that you weren't doing in the regular season so that you leave this season with no regret, just trying to cross all your boxes so that you're fully prepared when you go out there on Saturday.
We're on the second row, Eric. I wonder what you maybe learned from last year's playoff and kind of maybe what the lingering emotions are there that could motivate this group this year to go further.
Obviously last year didn't go the way we wanted, but it's a new year. So, I've been just approaching it like a clean slate, not really carrying any bad emotions from last year, looking at this year as a new opportunity to just, go out there and play our style of football. But yeah, last year didn't go the way we wanted, but it's a new year.
Back row, Matt, and then behind him, Jack.
Dan has said that this team's had to operate after Indiana where there are no more hiccups. You can't lose anymore. How do you feel like this team's handled that pressure and apply it now into a situation where it truly is you lose, your season's over?
I think, we have a team full of warriors, so we have no fear. I feel like we've approached it like we've approached this whole season. We've been leaving it all out on the table, going to practice, flying around, just really just running towards it, running towards that pressure instead of feeling it and trying to shy away from it, taking it in and just being a realist and seeing it for what it is, taking it and embracing it.
Back there, Jack.
Yeah, just building off that as it relates to the preparation, especially the mental preparation for the playoffs. What is there any difference in the way that you prepare for a game like this as opposed to sort of playoff type games in the regular season, like at USC or Washington? Is the preparation any different, or do you try to keep everything the same?
I think we keep everything the same because I feel like our preparation has been top tier all year. Going into this off preseason or postseason, Coach Landon was basically saying like what we do here works. What we do during the regular season works. We just intensify it in the postseason. You might add a couple of extra hours, a couple of extra walkthroughs, but I feel like our routine and what we have been doing this regular season and carrying it throughout the postseason, it works. So yeah.
Front row, James.
You guys have really steered into the FIBU mantra for the last couple of years, Noah. But when the national narrative and discussion is more about doubting JMU and whether a G6 team, who G6 team should be in the playoff, how they'll match up at the end, like as a guy who came from a G6 school, what do you think about doubting the lower conference teams or what you see in this opponent who does have some good statistics in terms of run defense and when people outside are doubting their ability as a guy who came from that level of football to get the success you're having here, how do you feel about when people are doubting that level of football?
I mean, I don't really care what other people are doing as long as our team is focused and, attacking them as, the next opponent. Down in the lower level team, I feel like it's the biggest mistake you can ever make. But I also feel like we're Oregon and we got to be realists about ourselves and who we are. They're a good team. And, all week we've been, approaching it like we're going to play UGA or Alabama. Like I coming from Western Kentucky, we played teams like Indiana and we almost beat them. So I feel like, you can't doubt your opponents. You shouldn't doubt anybody. They're a good team. They put a good season together. Yeah.
Yeah, Dan had said that he spent his conference championship weekend just kind of like on his couch, flipping around, watching all the games, just like he felt like a fan. I'm curious what you did and if you had that experience.
Can you repeat your question?
Yeah, Dan had said that he like for conference championship weekend, he had just been able to like sit back on his couch and really just kind of flip through the games and watch the channels and feel like a fan.
Mhm.
Um, I'm curious if you had that experience, what y'all did for championship weekend.
Yeah, I just, chill with my family, watch some football. Felt like a fan too, recovered. But I feel like the whole week I was just waiting for this moment. So, yeah.
No, we're going to go to the Zoom. Max?
No, I wanted to ask you about some of the offensive linemen that you're running behind. Seen some new pieces kind of step up, whether it's Fox or Janoris or Charlie when Poncho went down. What did you see from those guys, and what's it kind of like just running around behind rather some different pieces?
Um, I didn't really feel different as far as like in game and playing. Like I didn't really feel a difference. I would just say, just from a preparation standpoint that week, those guys coming in and they always, take practice reps and they always take middle reps and they always treat it as if they're gonna get their opportunity on Saturday. So when the moment really came, it really wasn't any difference because of how we practice. Coach Landon always preaches strength in numbers, and throughout practice, you got different pieces mingling together and for certain reps. And sometimes in practice, I'm running behind those guys. So in the game, it doesn't feel any difference because, yeah.
Max, your hand is still up. Did you have another question? Nope. Okay. Anybody else? One more, James, right here. Last one.
Anybody who's redshirting could play in the postseason, and obviously injured guys are on their way back.
Mm.
What have you seen by way of how Jaden has gotten himself ready to come back? We saw him obviously at Washington suit up and not get to play. And then how ready, if he had the opportunity, do you feel Makai is after not seeing the field for the last couple of months?
I feel like they both ready, just because of how we are and how we approach practice as a room. The standard doesn't change for anybody. So as hard as I'm going at practice is how hard they're going at practice. And, from watching them practice and watching them go out there and take their practice reps, they ready. Like, I don't think it would be any difference just because of, the level of talent our room holds and the level of standard we hold each other to. So with Jaden and Makai, if they do get their opportunity in the playoffs, I think they would go out there and ball out, honestly.